Welcome to this reading play in one act, written in 1938 by Norma Cooley. The title of the play is "And the Fruits Thereof." The characters in this play are the recording angel, a Protestant minister, and the prophet Isaiah. The play takes place in a well-lighted, spacious room with windows overlooking a garden. A table is in the center of the room, with several chairs placed at and near the table. An angel is at work in the room when an older gentleman enters the room. He steps forward and addresses the angel. "Pardon me. Perhaps you can help me. I've been commissioned by my country's congregations, that is, by our religious organizations, to petition or to appeal to, you see, I've come to present a very important, urgent case. In short, I wish to see God." "But, sir, you must understand that no one sees God." "No one sees God?" "No, never. Those who have complaints or requests to make must do so through his assistants. Do you represent others and wish to make an appeal in their behalf?" "Yes, I wish to report conditions in our land and ask for divine help in correcting those conditions." "Be seated. I cannot promise you assistance, but I can assure you that your case will receive the most careful consideration. I will inform the prophet Isaiah of your arrival and desire to see him." A few moments elapse, during which the angel resumes writing. The minister remains silent and looks wonderingly at the surroundings. "Be at your ease, my good man. There is no cause here for fear or reluctance to speak." "Greetings, Isaiah. I'm here from the United States of America." "Isaiah, the United States of America is a nation-state on the planet Earth, in the solar system of one of the lesser groups in the galaxy, which this gentleman recognizes as the Milky Way. It is, of course, your former home planet." "Thank you, Angel. Mention of this earthly land stirs my memory. Of the United States I know only by hearsay. It was not a part of the world I knew, but I have learned the language of those who live there and have conversed with many of their former countrymen. It is in behalf of our countrymen that I have come. It is because the situation in our country is most distressing, and our prayers, our most fervent prayers, seem to have been to be frank with you, they didn't seem to be receiving the attention we would naturally expect. To put it bluntly, our prayers for the mitigation of economic distress remain unanswered. You see, conditions have become very bad indeed. Millions of people are out of jobs, and many of them, even some who have occasional work, have no homes or are poorly housed. They are not adequately clothed. They are undernourished. Many would starve if the government did not feed them or make jobs for them. Your planet, I know, is subject to great and often destructive cataclysms of nature. Have these forces of nature destroyed all of the building materials? Is there no more wood and stone in your country? No more clay from which bricks can be made? Well, oh no, sir, I didn't mean that. But you see, these people have no jobs and consequently no pay. They cannot afford to build homes. Still, I do not understand. These people who have no work and no homes, why don't they build homes for themselves? Building is working, is it not? Yes, but there is no one to employ them. No one does employ them. But if they need these homes, can they not employ themselves, even as their ancestors did when they built their log cabins? But you see, the situation has become very complicated. In the first place, a man must have somewhere to build his house, and if he can't afford to buy a plot of land, he can't build at all. And then, if he has no money, he can't buy building materials. Just what do you mean when you say that if man cannot afford to buy a bit of land, he cannot build a home? Has the population of your country increased to such an extent that every foot of land is occupied? Oh no, sir. There is a great deal of land in our country that could be used. There are many acres that are not being farmed, and in and near our towns and cities there is a good deal of vacant land. But you see, it is already owned by somebody, and the others cannot afford to buy it. Indeed, many of them cannot afford to pay their rent. No, our problem has nothing to do with land. There is plenty of that. Ours is an economic problem, lack of purchasing power. As a matter of fact, many farmers do not own the land they are working. Sharecroppers, we call them, and their condition is deplorable. Our government has tried many plans for relieving both agriculture and industry, but we continue to have these industrial depressions, and each one seems to be worse than the one before. The situation has been further complicated by the propaganda of communists and socialists who have sent their agitators among our laborers. My brothers of the cloth will confirm my statement that every church in the country has sent up prayer after prayer, asking God to do something to relieve the suffering of our poorer classes, of women and little children who are forced to work in sweatshops, of the men who toil in mines and at the forges in the great steelworks. Why do men work in mines and factories, and little children in sweatshops, if they don't want to, when there are fields for pleasant labor and sweet meadows for little children to romp in? Well, they must earn a living, even though it is a meager one. They must take any jobs they can get. Although the work may be very disagreeable, it means bread and butter to them. Though they live in miserable tenements, there is rent to pay. Labor unions have succeeded in forcing up the wages and cutting down the hours for certain groups, but that does not affect all workers. Many are working long hours at very low wages. As I said before, millions have no jobs at all. A moment ago you said that many people have not sufficient food. Has something happened to destroy the fertility of the soil? Or is there lack of rainfall and not sufficient moisture? Or not the right temperature for the maturing of crops? Old Mother Earth is not as young as she used to be. No, sir, it isn't that. I didn't mean that. We have our droughts and floods and unseasonable hot and cold spells, but the fact is, our farmers and orchardists raise too much. The government had to curtail their production, kill some of the stock, plow under some of their crops, let some of their land lie idle, that sort of thing. But we made it up to them with what we call benefit payments through a processing tax, money raised by taxing industry. Of course, the consumers really paid that. You see, by curtailing the production of foodstuffs, the farmers could raise their prices. That helped to increase their incomes and save some farms from being lost. But you said that many people had no jobs at all, and others had very low wages. How can they pay these increased prices? Well, of course it is very difficult for them, but when you try to help out one group, I suppose some others naturally have to sacrifice a little. But those who are working long hours, they must make a good many things during these hours. Why don't they trade what they make for the foodstuffs that the farmers raise? Well, you see, these people are all employed by someone. They don't keep what they make. It belongs to their employers. There are some people who say that what is produced belongs to the producer, if you know what I mean. But those people are reformers, not practical businessmen. If an employer pays wages to his workers, of course, what they make belongs to the employer. Still, it is all very complicated and confusing. That is why I have come here. Unless God will intervene, I don't see how we ever can solve our problems and relieve this very serious condition. God is merciful. I am sure He cannot be aware of the plight we are in, of the suffering of mankind, or He would not permit it. If you could lay these facts before Him, tell Him that all our efforts have failed, I am sure He would take some steps to restore man to what? In heaven's name, restore man to what? As a minister of the gospel, you must know that God has made both material and spiritual laws to rule the universe. The earth is no exception. Like all the other celestial bodies, it performs in every particular in accordance with divine law. And this law governs the behavior of men in their social as well as in their individual lives. Did you think that God would make laws governing the melting of the ice and the budding of flowers and forget to make rules to govern the economic life of social units, of nations, and civilizations? Whenever men come together to live and think and act in groups, they make rules to govern their conduct and activities. But if those rules run contrary to the laws already ordained by God, disaster will follow. In that case, you men must change your laws, not expect God to alter His. God created a beautiful world, well dressed with plant and animal life, and gave man dominion over all the earth and the fruits thereof. He gave man all the raw materials, as you call it, that he could possibly need for his comfort and well-being, even for his pleasure. He gave these things not to one man, nor to any group of men, but to all men. He requires only one thing of mankind: labor. Human effort applied to these materials is the only method God provided for creating wealth. That is, the things that men need and want and can use and enjoy. No man or group of men has the right to deprive others of free access to these materials any more than one man has the right to deprive another of life itself. To deny a man the means of livelihood is to deprive him of life. Every babe that is born on earth, by the mere fact that it is born, inherits as much of the earth as it needs for a comfortable, happy life, as much as it needs, and no more. When a man dies, his need ceases, and he automatically relinquishes any right to further control. You say that your problem is an economic problem and has nothing to do with the land. Is it possible to produce food, or build homes, or carry on trade without using land? Your economic problem is first, last, and all the time a land problem. In your greed and selfishness, you have robbed each other of the earth and its resources that God intended for the use of all. In consequence, you wrangle and quarrel among yourselves and plunder each other and suffer economic disaster. You refuse to obey the divine laws that were laid down for you. That is why your prayers remain unanswered, as you say. You want the rules changed to save you from your own mistakes. God's laws are eternal and cannot be set aside because of human ignorance and error. Men are not born with knowledge, but with the capacity for learning. In what manner all may enjoy the fruits of the earth as God intended is not a difficult problem. In fact, it has already been solved by some of your own countrymen, but the rest of you will not listen. You will not even try to understand, but call them theorists and dreamers, and try by all possible means to get some little advantage over your fellows. You buy and sell the God-given earth as if you had made it yourselves. You will not let one man build a home or plant a garden unless he pays another for the privilege of using the earth to which he has as much right as anyone. God has no favorites among the little babies when they are born on earth. They all share and share alike in that divine inheritance. Go back and tell your congregations that they may pray and pray, but unless they change the laws governing their social life, unless they restore the land to the people, they can expect no relief. Salvation lies not in prayer, but in action. Go back and tell your people that God cannot alter his laws to save mankind from its own mistakes. I am not at liberty to discuss with you the details of the solution of your problem. You would not believe me if I did. It is not necessary because, as I have said, some of your own countrymen have already found the answer. You would have no cause to fear the false doctrines of socialists and communists if you would make a few simple adjustments in your laws. Make them coincide with God's laws, and you will rob no one of his earnings. You will restore to all that freedom that is their inherent right, that equality of opportunity that you promised yourselves in your own constitution. Go back and tell your congregations to act like intelligent, tolerant, thinking people, not like stupid, selfish brutes, and they will soon solve their problem. God has seen other civilizations rise and fall, and he did not lift a finger to stay them in their downward course. It may be that he will see this one pass into oblivion. Its fate hangs in the balance. But do not rely upon prayer to save it. Prayer did not save the other civilizations, and it will not save yours. My dear minister, This interview is over. Isaiah turns, and he and the angel gaze at each other for a moment in silence. I wonder after all if God, in his infinite wisdom, who must have foreseen all things, really foresaw such colossal stupidity. The end.